Welcome back to the Something in the Wilderness podcast. Our goal is to deep dive into each Andrew McMahon song from throughout his career, one by one. Today, we're discussing a special song to a lot of fans, a song that'll actually turn 20 years old this year. Longtime Andrew McMahon fan Carolyn is joining me for the discussion today. Now, what's special about this episode is that it's the first time I've had a guest on to talk about a song from the album North, one of my very favorite albums of all time. I love talking about this album in general, and I'm sure you'll enjoy hearing us talk about this song. So welcome to the show, Carolyn.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be the first one to talk about North.
I mean, it's my favorite album of all time, and I'm just glad I get to talk about it with someone finally. I was looking back at my past episodes thinking, how have I done all those episodes on my own, those other 5 songs? So 6 one's a charm, I guess, in this case. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I live in South Carolina, and I love it very much. I am a music enthusiast, mostly Andrew, but there's a lot of other bands and artists that I'm really passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
I hate the expression, but I really feel it. I'm like an old soul because I have a lot of hobbies and activities that tend to gear towards older interests. I like to sew and I love gardening, and I have a weekly mahjong game with like actual older women. And so, you know, the youngest thing about me is my musical taste.
Nothing wrong with that. Yeah. That's perfectly okay. My 11-year-old, I believe, is downstairs crocheting right now. So it's all good. She's just learning. So, well, again, thanks for coming on the show. And you picked a great song from a great album, as I mentioned. So tell me, and since we're going back 20 years, tell us how you got into Andrew McMahon, or was it back then? I don't know.
So I didn't get in right at the jump with something corporate. I got introduced to Andrew McMahon when I met my best friend. Her name is Tiffany, and we have a meet cute story. I went to the wrong classroom my sophomore year, and by the time I made it to the class that I was supposed to be in, the only empty seat left in the class that I was supposed to be at was next to her. And so I kind of stumbled into class all frazzled, sat down, and she was just super nice and sweet and welcoming, and we just bonded. And as we started hanging out, she was like, "Hey, have you ever heard of something corporate?" And, you know, love story from there with my best gal pal and Andrew McMahon. It was just meant to be.
Well, that's a good friend right there. You know, you have a good friend when they're bringing Andrew into your life. You said sophomore year. Was that high school or college?
High school, yes.
That could be tough to go to the wrong classroom in high school.
I mean, I still am a little bit shy, but I was such an awkward teenager. It was the worst thing that could have happened to me, was being the last person in after class had already started and everybody looking at me. And she just kind of de-escalated the whole thing for me. She was so nice. She's just like the most welcoming, giving person. She's just amazing. So I'm lucky to have found her kind of by mistake.
You're lucky for a few reasons, because I think that happened to me my freshman year. I remember English. It was the last period of the day, first day of school. And it was just like that, but nobody was there to welcome me. It was just kind of awkward.
Yeah.
So, but it's nice that you got something good out of it.
Yes, I got a lot of great things out of that. So
cool. Well, I'm sure we'll hear more about Tiffany as the episode goes on.
I'm sure you will.
So I remember anticipating this album for a bit, because I wasn't that into something corporate I wasn't into something corporate for very long when this album was about to come out, but I definitely remember hearing their first album and thinking, oh my gosh, they have a new album coming out already, and looking forward to that. So I'm not sure if I bought it the day it came out or pretty close to that date though, but I do remember putting it on and listening to it all the way through. And still to this day, it's hard for me to listen to one song off of North at a time.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a perfect album all the way through. It's one of those albums, and there's other albums by other artists and by Andrew that I feel this way about, but this one just seems special. It's just so cohesive through and through. But the song we're talking about today is a standout track on what I consider a perfect album. So pretty special to me, and it sounds like it's special to you too.
Yeah, I just was lucky to have a couple different albums to listen to. So I started, I guess it was 2003, maybe.
Yep, that's when it came out.
Yeah, and so it was already out, but I also had, what was was Leaving Through the Window before that.
Yep, just before it.
So I had a little bit of a collection to get into with her.
Mm-hmm.
I remember hearing this song and just thinking how beautiful the piano was and how much I really loved his voice and the lyrics. I mean, it felt like magic. I just loved it so much.
I love the way you described that because I was just listening to the song again for the 1000th time probably before we started. And that's kind of what I was thinking, that the sound is kind of magical.
Mm-hmm.
The song we're talking about today is She Paints Me Blue, and it is track. I actually didn't know which track it is off of North, but I think it's number 8. So I'm going to go with that. Do you have the CD nearby?
Yeah.
The record?
Yeah, I have it.
Usually I write it down.
It is 8. It's after Ruthless, before Break Myself.
It's interesting. So I didn't know it was track 8 until you said that for sure. Number 8's my lucky number. It's my favorite number. And I had this theory from being a teenager and on that track 8 was always a great song on an album.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not positive about this, but I think Fall is track 8 on Leaving Through the Window. And I love that song too. That's a Josh Partington song, but I may be wrong on that, but
We'll go with it. I was lucky enough that she knew how to burn CDs. And so, like, the third day we knew each other, she just, like, handed me a couple CDs. And it was Andrew's stuff, and it was just other bands that she loved. She was just so excited to share all of her music with me. And I was so excited to hear it because I was, excited about all of it.
I got to give you props too, though, not just her, because not everybody's receptive to that. Like when you're like, hey, I made you some CDs, and some people are just like, thanks, and it sounds like you were like, awesome, I'm going to listen to them.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I loved it. I'm always pretty willing to try new music, and a lot of it I really like, and some of it I don't, but I'm always interested to hear about why people like what they like.
Oh, totally. I love that. Yeah, so the album came out on October 21st, 2003, and you picked this song. Was there a particular reason you picked this song?
It's just always been my favorite Andrew song because like I said, it's just so beautiful. I just love everything about it. It has just always stuck with me. And I think probably at that point, like when I first heard it, I was a teenager and my feelings just felt too big for me. And the Andrew music just spoke to me in a way that I was like, all right, I can get down with this because it makes sense to me. And I just really connected to this one in particular. I don't know. I just loved it.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. The lyrics speaking to me, the sound of the song, we'll talk about that as well. It's fitting for the album. It was fitting for the time period somehow. I don't know. It just, I think it spoke to a lot of us. I think that's why it still survives to this day in set lists. I mean, it's, and we'll talk more about this, but it's one of the few from North that still lives on today, live in concert. So can you believe this album is going to be 20 years old this fall?
No, I cannot.
We've got a Something Corporate reunion coming up in October, actually a week after the 20th anniversary, now that I think about it. Wow.
That's awesome.
I know they're not going to spend their whole set playing North songs. There's no way, but that would be my dream, though.
I mean, he's done crazier stuff before, so...
He'll probably stick to the standards, but the standard hits, but from Something Corporate. But what I wouldn't give for a full North playthrough. I know it's not going to happen this year. We're on tour for a brand new album, and
oh, that's right.
Yeah, but then Something Corporate reunion in the fall. But again, I think being a one-off or two-off, I think they'll stick to the hits. But that would be cool. But anyway, this song was written solely by Andrew McMahon, as far as the liner notes say. And the band's lineup at the time was Andrew on piano and vocals, and Josh and William on guitar, Kevin Page on bass, and Brian Ireland on drums, with Jim Wirt producing. The album was recorded between May and June of 2003. I'm not sure if you've heard this story before. I've mentioned it on the podcast, though, that apparently it was recommended to them that they get out of town for a while, away from distractions. So they actually went up to Seattle to record this album, or maybe outside of Seattle or something. And I never put this together, but For the last couple years, as Andrew's progressed into different styles of music, I look back at this album and I'm like, I think I like this album so much because it was kind of, it had some remnants left over of the grunge era. It was kind of a pop punk album, but it was also kind of like melodic and grungy in ways. And I
Yeah.
never really put that together that, okay, they went up to Seattle to record it and had some grunge influences, but that might just be my opinion. I don't know if anybody agrees, but were you into grunge music in that era or previous or no?
Not particularly. I like punk and I still like emo, but
Yeah.
I didn't get too far into the grunge. But I can see what you're saying because it does have kind of like a grittier feel almost, but like still being soft. I don't know. That doesn't make sense.
No, I agree. I think the guitars were kind of crunchy and gritty, and definitely moody. It's like a very moody album. And
Yeah.
Josh Partington's even said in an interview that they were going for moody and gloomy. He described it as a broody feeling, and I definitely think they captured that. And I'm like, well, that kind of sounds like grunge, at least the attitude. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I just kind of thought of that earlier. I was like, yeah, Seattle grunge. I don't know. I don't know if there was any connection there, but I know those guys. I think about these guys and women who made music in the early 2000s, and I'm like, yeah, they grew up to grunge, so there's no surprise that it somehow influenced.
Yeah. Some undercurrents of it.
Yeah, even if that's not the music they were trying to make, which they probably weren't. But what other kind of, you mentioned this at the beginning of the episode, what other kind of music were you listening to around that time anyway? Like when you met your friend Tiffany, like what were your go-tos prior to meeting her?
I loved Dashboard Confessional. I'd been a long time Dashboard girl. Other than that, mostly listened to whatever my brother was playing in the car.
Hmm.
And my brother has good taste in music. It's just a little bit different. So he would have these wild mixes, and it would start with Wake Me Up by Evanescence, and I really liked it.
Hmm.
And then he would have some kind of random country song that he liked. And so he just had a very wide range. So I just kind of had that in my head from the rides to school. So it was nice
Yeah.
when I could start getting my hands on more of my own kind of stuff that I liked
Hmm.
through other friends and, just meeting people because I didn't know how to burn my own CDs.
You were lucky in your brother's taste. My brother, at least in high school, was listening to very bassy songs like rap and R&B, like stuff that would hurt my ears on the way to school. I remember that. Eazy-E, ICP, stuff I was not into, still am not into. So, so if you had to listen to your brother's music, that doesn't sound so bad.
Yeah, he keeps me current on cool stuff. I don't know. He
Oh,
just
still to this
always,
day, huh?
yeah, he's
Oh, very cool.
he's artsy. So he went to the Savannah College of Art and Design, SCAD, and so
Yeah,
he's very in touch with all things artsy from painting to music. So he's like, "Hey, you would like this." But when I was,
very cool.
when we were in high school and I was like his nerdy little sister, he's like, "Just listen to this music and don't talk to me." But we're very close as adults, but I think it's just that teenage thing.
That's really awesome. That's good to hear. Have you had the chance to see Andrew McMahon live? Like, I'm going to assume you went to the Dashboard and Andrew show last year, but I don't know that.
I absolutely did. I was in heaven at the Dashboard and Andrew show.
Oh, for
Um,
sure.
and I actually went to the show in Atlanta. So I got to hear my favorite song because
Oh, so he sang it because
we were in Atlanta.
was it outdoors?
No, it was inside, but
Ah,
it was still very powerful.
yeah. Okay, because I was going to ask the obvious question, but okay. Was it raining?
No, unfortunately, it wasn't.
Yeah.
But, that collective concert experience where everyone is just really feeling it and singing along. And we had just the best time.
Awesome.
So, where I live, Atlanta is one of the closest places that he goes. So,
Okay.
I think I've seen it more than once in Atlanta because in my head, I've seen him do it a couple times. And people just like going nuts.
I bet he probably plays She Paints Me Blue every time he goes to Atlanta.
If I was him, I would.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to. So were you able to? So you didn't see something corporate back in the day, though.
No, I didn't. My first Andrew show was when Jack's Mannequin opened for OAR in
Okay.
Charleston.
Yeah.
That one was outdoors. It was like a tennis tournament arena thing.
Okay.
That was a Jack's thing. But
Mm-hmm.
my very cool friend entered some kind of contest or lottery to meet him. So I actually got to meet him with her and two of our other friends before the show. My very
Your first
first,
time seeing him?
yes,
Oh
my
my
very first time
gosh.
seeing him, I got to meet him, and I still have that picture, and it's hanging on my wall. It's a prized possession. And so I've been fortunate enough to see him after a few other shows, like over the past 20 years. And he's just so nice and genuine. So I'm very lucky when it comes to my fandom.
That is very cool. So I never met him until just a couple years ago. 2021 actually, and I do wonder if he was always that friendly and cool with the fans before and after shows. So it sounds like he was. It sounds like it was a pretty good experience.
Yes, 100% amazing. And so we would make our own t-shirts for concerts,
Hmm.
and we would pick out a lyric and paint it or do some kind of picture related to our favorite song. And it was always a talking point with him. He would really love our shirts, or at least he would pretend to, because he's so sweet.
Oh, that's so cool. He noticed his lyrics on your shirt.
Yes.
That's awesome.
So we had a lot of fun, but I don't think I've ever not had just an amazing, genuine seeming conversation with him, even if it's just like a minute or two,
Sure.
taking pictures and talking about the show. And he's just so nice.
Do you still have those shirts, or are they long gone?
I still have a few of them.
Uh huh.
The one from the first show, I have a shadow box with the picture, my ticket, and my t-shirt as the background. And then there's one that I actually still wear. I don't know, somehow it has outlasted the washing machine more than the others. And then I had a few that I had to stop wearing and just kind of pull it neatly and tuck into a closet for memory so they didn't get ruined, because a few of them were signed.
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
Yeah. We would ask him to sign everything. Sign my shirt, sign my necklace, sign my arm.
Yeah.
And he would.
I'm sure he did. I'm sure he didn't mind. He just seems like so cool with all that stuff. He just laughs and it seems like he's having a good time. So,
Yeah.
which I think is really important that he seems that genuine. Do you get to still go to concerts with your friend Tiffany?
Yes. So that's one of my favorite things about my Andrew fandom, other than the obvious enjoyment that I get out of it, is
Mm-hmm.
her and I don't live in the same place anymore. So there are actually three of us that are very good friends to this day. Grace, who lives in Atlanta, who I stay with, Tiffany,
Mm-hmm.
and myself, and all three of us live in different places. And so one of the ways that we get together is for shows, and we have just an amazing weekend together, and we go to the show, and we hug each other and sing along, and
Oh
it's just
yeah.
an amazing way to reconnect, because with schedules and everything, when a tour gets announced, you look at it and there's the date, and we just do the best we can to make it work, and it helps
Yeah.
bring us together.
Sure. Yeah. Sometimes the dates don't work, but when they do, that sounds magical there. What a great friendship you guys have. I love that. So did they go to Hello Gone Days with you in Atlanta last year?
They did. Actually, unfortunately, Tiffany couldn't go to that one, but her older sister lives in Atlanta and went with us.
And did you guys make it t-shirts?
We did not.
Okay. Those times have passed.
Yeah, we still wear Andrew shirts, but not ones that
Hmm.
we've made.
When you said that, I was like, yeah, I guess I've written on a shirt, but it was for a very specific event. So it was on the Rock Boat 2021. It was called White Lie or something like that. And you wrote something that wasn't true. And so I wrote, My life has become a boring pop song, and everybody's singing along. So,
I love that.
yeah, so I still have it. I don't wear it anywhere.
Oh yeah. High school and college, we were making our own shirts. We put a lot of work into them. We wore them proudly, and I still remember it fondly, but as adults, we just wear the ones that we buy.
Yeah, that's cool. But do you have the memories and the shirts, apparently? I haven't seen the song in Atlanta, but I've noticed that it's been on the set list a lot these last few years. So, but I do remember him actually playing it because again, it's always a standout song for me. and he played it in one of the Ohio shows on the Hello Gone Days tour. Not both, but one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And he replaced it with Me and the Moon on the opposite date, which was fine by me to hear both of them in one tour.
Yeah.
And then I heard on the Rock Boat one of the nights, and he also played it in Pontiac in 2020. Or no, not in Pontiac. No, Dear Jack last year. He played it at Dear Jack 2022 as well in Chicago. So it just seems like that kind of semi-regular staple in the set list. And like I said at the top of the episode, he doesn't play a whole lot off of North regularly.
Yeah.
There are some that come up every once in a while, like 21 and Invincible. I can't even think of any others besides Me and the Moon and She Paints Me Blue that are regulars. Can you?
Not off the top of my head, but maybe that's just because my radar is always perked up for She Paints Me Blue.
Yeah, because it's your favorite. Yeah. All right. According to Setlist FM, the song's been played 121 times, only 24 of them actually by something corporate.
Wow.
So that's pretty wild.
That is. I wouldn't have expected that.
Well, I also wouldn't have expected this. 9 times by Jack's Mannequin. I didn't think Jack's Mannequin ever played something corporate songs. I never noticed that when I'm looking these up before.
No.
But that's, I don't know, maybe it was on a certain tour. Maybe it was, I wonder if it was that 2016 10 Years in Transit tour where they played Jack's Mannequin, they played other, I thought they stuck to just a Jack's Mannequin on that tour, but interesting. 19 times by Andrew solo, and 69 of them by Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness up until last week. So I don't know if you know this about me, but I do not want to know anything about set lists on the current tour because I am so excited to see Andrew this Saturday. So we're recording before May 20th, and May 20th is the date I get to see him in Michigan. However, if you have looked at set lists, I invite you to share with me, has he played She Paints Me Blue in the last 3 days that you know of? And it's okay if you don't.
I am not aware.
Because I have not looked at any of that stuff, but I tell you what, my feed, it's unavoidable. I keep seeing like people post pictures of set lists and videos and pictures with lyrics across it, and I'm like, no. Like the rest of the world, I can't stay off social media, so.
Yeah, you can't escape it. That's
Yeah.
the same reason I have to watch Secession the night it comes out, because otherwise if I do it the next day on Twitter, I'm ruined.
Yes, you get me. I don't know. He's played 3 shows. I think he might be playing tonight too. So maybe 4 shows that I've somehow yet avoided most of the set. But
Yeah.
I also heard that he's changing it up each night. He said that on Camp Wilderness. Another friend of mine commented because I put something on Facebook, and she was like, "Don't worry, he's supposed to change the set each night." So we'll see. I don't know. Usually it doesn't change too much.
I know they have certain songs that they obviously practice and get ready for to play on tour, but I do know that he likes to mix it up. He doesn't want to do the exact same one for every single show. Did you watch that Dr. McMahon YouTube that I sent you?
I did, and I had never seen that before. How did you even find that?
I don't know. Probably one of my very dear friends was just playing around and it found it, but I hear his voice in my head saying that video all the time, which is 100% where I'm getting my idea that he likes to switch it up, because way back when he said, "Do you remember when so-and-so used to just hand us a set list?" He's like, "But now I got to write my own." And he's like, "I have a PhD in set list creation." And the interviewer was like pestering him about what his emphasis was. And he's like, "I didn't go to college." And it's just hilarious. And I love it so much.
He's like, "I don't know. He's like, "I don't know how it works. I didn't go to college."
She's like, "Yes, but your
and he looks like a kid.
Oh my gosh, he's so young. He still has his eyebrow pierced.
Yeah, that was funny. I haven't seen too much video of Andrew and the guys in something corporate from that era. There is like a very short documentary about them, like showing footage of the Warped Tour and things that I have watched, but they don't talk a whole lot in that video. But that was funny. It was just, it felt like somebody had their VHS camera or whatever and was just messing with him backstage. I don't know if it was like somebody that was a friend of his or a fan or what, but you said you thought he was getting a little annoyed.
Like in a joking way. I don't think he was actually, I don't think he was truly riled up. I think he was just like, I don't know. Can we go on to the next thing? I don't know. I didn't go to college. I'm telling you, I have a PhD in sales creation. So just roll with it.
Hopefully he puts that to good use this tour and changes it up a bit and really surprises us with some things. So I like the surprises, but I like the set list regulars too. Don't get me wrong, and I definitely am banking on hearing some of that new album, Tilt at the Wind No More. I love just about every song on it, and I think they'll translate differently live on stage, and I'm really curious to see what that's like. So
Yeah, I love experiencing songs that I love live because there are certain lyrics that'll pop in my head when I'm listening to it or even when I'm singing along. And
hmm
sometimes it hits at exactly that moment at the show. And sometimes I'm the only one that's like screaming it. And then another lyric is popping to other people. So I always just find it really interesting.
let's get back to the song to She Paints Me Blue. We've talked a lot about live music. We've talked about the album North, and let's focus on the song now. You also sent me a good video where Andrew is live in concert in Melbourne, Australia, and he's describing what the song's about. So he says in the video that he wrote the song in the first room he ever lived in outside of his, moving away from his parents' house, which I know from another source that very same room was Jordan from Newfound Glory's guest room. And he lived in there for about 6 months, but he never bothered to buy a regular light bulb, apparently.
Hmm.
So I don't know if I saw in that video he said he actually put a blue light bulb in, but in another video or another recording I listened to, he was saying that he was just too lazy to change it to a regular light bulb. So I don't know if it was just there and he was like, I'll go with it, or if he actually put the blue light in there. And so he was inspired by by the blue light in the bedroom he was staying in to write this song. So supposedly he wrote it in this bedroom. He thought it looked cool, and he also joked in the video that he'd have a lot of fun in that room. So the blue light just kind of worked or whatever. And I think he know what he meant. There was another recording I listened to that I'll come back to. Oh, actually, I'll just say it now. In the Dear Jack 2018 show, he mentions he tells a similar story, and he said that I was high most of the time, so whatever, something like that. So I'm like, sounds like teenage Andrew to me. But yeah, thanks for sharing that video. That was really cool to watch. I always love catching things like that. Did you happen to know about that video before we talked about doing this episode, or is that something you went out and found, or what?
I had seen it previously just because I love watching videos of concerts. Not as much anymore time wise, but I used to just search for Andrew McMahon, something corporate, and just watch whatever, like whoever had a good recording of a show, I would
hmm
watch through it.
And that was a pretty good recording of She Paints Me Blue. I'm definitely posting that in the show notes. I would recommend it because it's him on a piano, and you get the story at the beginning. So it's kind of perfect, actually. So thank you for sharing that. I never had a blue light in any apartment or dorm room, but I did have some like goofy decorations. Did you get into like decorating your apartment or dorm room or anything like that crazy when you were in college or just out of high school or whatever?
I was never that creative with lighting. I always just preferred traditional because colored lighting kind of hurts my eyes. But
hmm
my daughter, actually, she's 5. She has one of the light bulbs with the remotes where you can cycle through the different colors.
My
And
daughters have that too.
yes, so it's kind of fun. But after a couple minutes, I ask her, I'm an old lady now, can we switch it back? And then you can pick
hmm
whatever color you want after I leave the room. But it is kind of neat for a couple minutes. But I feel like that would have driven me crazy after a little while. But maybe my younger eyes would have been more agreeable to it.
It's funny you bring that up because my daughters sometimes their room is blue now that I think about it, depending on what my youngest puts on. So because it's the switch is right by her side of the
Hmm.
bed, so theirs is like a light strip around the top, like the side and the top, and it changes colors, and they can make it red or make it blue. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, the reason I asked is I never got creative with lighting or anything, but I kind of cringe at like I think about people walking into my dorm room, and I had like it was all music and movies, like music and
Yeah.
movie posters all over the place. My 500 CDs, like even though my dorm room was like a closet, I still had my dorm room or my CDs like lining the walls, so everybody had to look at them when they came in. So I was so proud of my collection. So.
I do have one kind of interesting room decor related anecdote. For my 18th birthday, my very good friend who we've discussed, she painted and made a cardboard cutout of Andrew McMahon for me, and I still have it. And it wouldn't fit in my dorm, but I had it in my room in high school before I left. And then once I got my apartment in college, I brought it with
Hmm.
me. So Andrew was always in my room, my little cardboard Andrew.
Okay, so that was my next question. So he was in your room, not out in the you didn't make like your roommates look at him in your living room, right?
No, no, he was
But
in my room.
that's hilarious though. So would you mind sharing a picture of him? Do you mind if I share a picture on social media of that? Is
Oh no,
that
I
cool
think
with
that'd
you?
be fine. Yeah.
That's a lot of fun. It sounds like you guys have a pretty like fun but also funny time about your fandom with Andrew.
Yes, we love it. It's something that we all enjoy individually, but when we get together, it just kind of magnifies and we feed off of each
Hmm.
other's energy at shows or even in the car, just like singing along and just kind of really enjoying it together. Because
Yeah.
music is always better with someone else, depending on the mood, you know?
Hmm.
Like
Yep.
driving and singing with somebody else who's really also into singing and loves the music, it's just unparalleled.
We have some family sing-alongs in our car, which are great. So not so much for Andrew, but the kids don't sing Andrew too much, but
Yeah,
it's more like Katy Perry, Kelly Clarkson, you
I
know.
do a lot of Let It Go in
Yeah, oh
the
yeah.
car now.
That was yeah, I remember that age. We had a Let It Go age for sure. Not that they still don't like that movie or anything, they do, but after singing it for like years and years, we had to move on.
I don't mind it because I enjoy a lot of different kinds of music, but I will
Yeah.
I will be glad when her tastes mature a little bit. But I can't hold it
Hmm.
against her. She's 5.
Be careful what you wish for. Like my oldest daughter is now like, "Oh, Kids Bop is stupid now." And I'm like, "What? We were just listening to that like last year and all like singing along to the Kids Bop versions cuz they basically it's like a clean sanitized version of pop songs so that you don't get all the stuff that you don't want your kids to hear." And she's like, "No, I'm like, "You're 11. Like you're still
I can't
Kids
let you
Bop."
listen to the real one.
Right. So, ugh. Anyway, that 2018 Dear Jack recording that I have from that I mentioned earlier, he also told a story about being on tour with Newfound Glory in reference to the song. So just before he sings this song in that concert, he said, I was on tour with Newfound Glory and I was in Atlanta. And he said, sometimes I would have the crew drag my piano out by the trailer and just kind of leave it out by the trailer. And I would play songs on it or, just write songs after the show, which I found that interesting. I'm trying to imagine like somebody with a piano out in the alley playing on it, but that's what he said. He was in Atlanta and it started raining. And so he's like, that's kind of where that line came from. So then he went on to say, so I kind of wrote it in Atlanta, out in the street, and I kind of wrote it in the bedroom. He's like, so I don't really know where I wrote it. Maybe both places or something. He said something like that. So, which I'm sure pieces of songs come together from all different places. So
Yeah,
that isn't too unexpected.
I love that. That's so funny.
I could have guessed it was so literal, but I didn't know for sure until I heard him say that. I think we all assume this song's about Kelly, but interestingly, in neither of those two stories, I don't think he mentions Kelly, does he?
I don't think so. Which I think in my head, all Andrew songs are about Kelly with a few
Yeah,
minor exceptions. So I think it's just superimposed in my brain that that's who it's about. But now that
yeah.
you mention it, I don't know if I've ever specifically heard him mention her in relationship with the song.
I think you're right. I think we can assume that though that it's about Kelly, him talking about love. So, and we'll definitely touch more on that with the lyrics. I'm curious. So when you hear this song, because you talked about how beautiful and magical the sound of the song was, like, can you give me a feeling word? Like, how do you feel when you hear the song?
That's an excellent question. I think I feel hopeful, which I know isn't exactly the vibe of this song, but
Mm-hmm.
I think just because, again, like the depth of the feeling, it's like if you can feel that way about someone, even if it doesn't work
Mm-hmm.
out specifically, like that's still a good
Yeah.
sign for you as a person. I think that you just have a lot of like love.
I definitely feel love when I hear this song. I think hopeful is a great answer because I don't know if it's necessarily a sad song. I mean, it sounds sad, and some of the lyrics lead you to believe that it's a sad moment or a heartbreaking moment, but I don't know. I think hopeful is a good answer for that. I like that.
I don't think blue always has to equate to sad also.
Yeah, and I think that's where my mind does go. You know, obviously dark blue, she paints me blue. She paints me blue does sound like she's making him sad. That's how I always took that, but I don't know. It doesn't necessarily mean that, and I think there's bright spots in the song and even in the lyrics, and just kind of looking at the timeline and again making the big assumption that it is about Kelly, which is probably pretty accurate. You know, they were together. They were in love at this time, so it does make sense that he'd be writing a love song. Relationships have ups and downs, so it's okay to feel blue sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
I had a guest on over 2 years ago named Mike Valdez, and he and I talked about dark blue. And he actually talked about She Paints Me Blue as well a little bit on that episode. This was, again, over 2 years ago. But he said he's a piano player. He's a musician. And he said, and I've never fact-checked this. I take his word for it. He's a musician. I am not. And he said the piano melody to She Paints Me Blue is dark blue backwards.
Whoa.
And this is what he said. I went back and listened to make sure I had this right. He said it's in a different key in the recording, but when Andrew plays it live, he plays it in the key of C, which is how he plays dark blue. I'm going to add that to my ongoing questions. I would ask Andrew if I just had some time to ask him random things, because like when I had him on the podcast, it was pretty focused on certain things, and I didn't want to just start like pulling out my list of random questions on him. And I also feel weird like at meet and greets and like at times I meet him like, hey, and by the way, I have this one question about this song you wrote 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'd ever ask him any of these things, but that's just kind of one of those things. It's like, interesting. But
it's really interesting. I think I heard that episode because doesn't he sing his own cover of it and play?
He does, yeah.
Yeah.
In the middle episode, he did his own cover.
For some reason, I didn't remember that he thought that it was the same backwards. That's really crazy.
Yeah, so I don't know. So if there's any other musicians out there that can confirm, I'd be real curious to, or maybe Mike himself will play me he'll play dark blue and then play She Paints Me Blue right up against it, and I'd be really curious to hear that. The instrumentation, I think there's so much to love about this song, and I think it's what makes it so special. Now, is there an instrument in this song that sticks out to you more than another? I mean, usually, I'll be honest, and I'll answer my own question first because I know that the obvious answer is piano. But I don't know, is that what's obvious to you, or is there something more obvious than another, or do you like hear all the instruments in it?
It's mostly piano for me, which is, I think, one of the main things that attracted me to this song and Andrew in general is just the beautiful piano playing and just how well it's integrated with the other instruments. I remember thinking, like, why don't more bands use a piano?
Yeah. So thinking about the different instruments and what I've noticed about this song, I think the piano is the hopeful sound in the mix. But the guitar, if you notice, is kind of like dreary and sad. It's like this real like down, I don't know how to exactly describe it. You've got the piano that's like really hopeful, like kind of upbeat a little bit. And then the guitar's doing something that's, to me, opposite. I don't know if that's true or not, but musically. But then the tempo with the drums, that like really quick drum beat, I don't know. Would you call this a ballad? I don't know.
I don't think it's slow enough, but maybe that's just my own definition of a ballad.
Take on what a ballad, yeah. I struggle with the same thing on this one. I'm like, is it a ballad? I mean, I think it fits the description, but I think it's that drum beat, that quick tempo that like makes it more fit into the Something Corporate catalog at that time.
Yeah.
When we think of ballads, we probably think of, I don't know, I Won't Make You and some of the Leaving Through the Window songs like Globes and Maps and things like that, really slow songs, good slow ballads. So this doesn't really fit with those. I just noticed that, I don't know, I hear all the instruments pretty equally, interestingly, because I'll tell you what, I've said this before on the podcast, I don't normally notice the bass. But when I listen for it, I can definitely hear the bass. All the instruments are doing something different from one another, which I think makes this song really unique. And honestly, I didn't notice as like a regular listener who just like, oh, I'm going to put on She Paints Me Blue and listen. I love
Yeah.
that song until I really started listening for that stuff. And I was like, yeah, it's actually a pretty unique musically song. So,
Well, I love the point that you were making earlier about the piano sounding like it has a different feeling than the guitar, or maybe even some of the other instruments, which is just a very true reflection of feelings in general. They coexist and sometimes they don't make sense together, but they're there together.
yeah, yeah, I like that. Absolutely. It's like I said about relationships, it's there's low points, there's high points. And I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I love to do that on this show. So that maybe that's what the song was describing about the relationship, is that there's some really really great and hopeful and beautiful points, but then there's like this side of it that can be really difficult and dreary and make you not want to be in a relationship at times. I don't know. And as we all know in the timeline of Andrew's life, they separated for a while after this and then
Yeah.
became a fairy tale love story after that. So I just love that I can pick out all the instruments because I can't always do that in songs in general. So, but there's just something special about the song. Now we've talked a lot about North here, but do you like to listen to that album all the way through? Are you a fan of just about all the songs, or is this a song you specifically go to away from the album?
This is one that I do go to away from the album. It's just such a comfort song for me because I love
Mm-hmm.
it so much. But I will, if I'm in the mood for it, listen to North start to finish. And there are actually
Mm-hmm.
very few albums that I listen to all the way through because I kind of like to make playlists now on Spotify because it's,
Yeah.
and then I just kind of set it to random so I don't have to pick, but I know it's all music that I love and songs that I love. But for
Mm-hmm.
North, there's just something so special and different about it that it's just an experience altogether.
I totally agree. But yeah, this is it's in a great spot. Like we said earlier, it's track 8 out of 12. So it just kind of like in between those heavier songs and kind of brings the mood back a little bit. And I love how that long outro, pretty long outro. It's actually, I counted, it was 45 seconds long,
Oh,
where he
wow.
says Atlanta's raining on me. He repeats that line. But it's 45 seconds with including those two lines, and that's what leads into "Break Myself," which is a pretty dynamic change between those two songs.
Yeah.
But with that said, let's talk lyrics. So we obviously, and you've already mentioned it, we can't talk about the lyrics of this song without talking about Blue, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think about that? What is there to that? Is he talking about being sad? Do you think, in your opinion?
Yes,
Because that's how I always interpreted it.
I
I don't know.
do.
That's
Like you, I'm in the business of over analyzing. So when I really break it
same.
down, I think there's a lot there. But I think at the very surface of there is a sadness because he's not
Hmm.
sure if the feelings are reciprocated, if things are going to work out. And so, I do think that it's there.
Yeah, I think so too. And that's how I've always interpreted the song. But I do also, like I said, I think it's the sound of that piano and the quick tempo drum that makes me think it's hopeful. But again, I think there's some hopeful lines in here. To me, this song reads more like the lyrics read more like a poem than a song.
Yeah.
I guess you can say that about a lot of Andrew songs.
He's such a beautiful writer. And I keep using the
Hmm.
word beautiful because I just genuinely feel that way about his piano playing and his lyrics. I mean,
Hmm.
it is poetry. A lot of artists, when they write songs, read like poems, but then a lot of them you're like, oh, a songwriter wrote this to sound like a song.
Hmm.
But his is just always so different to me because he gets so specific.
Yeah, I do like the very specific lines sometimes that he does. I think sometimes we get stories in Andrew songs, and sometimes we get more vague poems.
Hmm.
And I think this is more along those lines, the vague poem. And I also think about the words that it's one of those songs, and I've heard a lot of interviews with songwriters, and some with Andrew, but a lot of others as well. And I know that sometimes it's about the way the words flow together and that kind of helps write the song. It's not just, what are the words I want to say, but it's sometimes what are the words I want to say, or what's the message I want to convey, and what words flow right. And I just think with this song, it seems like some of the word choices were because it sounded good,
Yeah.
which is no dig at a songwriter whatsoever. I mean, I think it sounds amazing the way the words flow together and went with the music. So I'm not sure if, what I'm saying is I think the music may have been written before the lyrics, actually. Like, he had this melody in mind, and he's like, and this sounds really good, like, with that melody. So
Yeah.
I always Google the title of the song and the song lyrics just to see what comes up, and usually it's just like the lyrics on a page. Sometimes it's people's comments and opinions from over the years, and sometimes you find some websites from 2004 where people were talking about this song when it was kind of new. But I thought it was funny what these people said. So somebody commented something on songmeanings.com in relation to the song and said that there's not many songwriters that can get away with just writing "and you're my good feeling," but Andrew definitely can. And I was like, yeah, you know what? And then someone else chimed in additionally, and they're like, "and don't forget you're my reason for breathing." And I was like, yeah, I don't know. I guess some people would interpret that as like generic lines, but I think they're absolutely perfect. Like, I've never questioned the genuineness of those two lines ever. I don't know. I just thought it was funny. I'm like, but I don't really read song lyrics and be like, why did they write? Maybe some artists, but I guess I don't question song lyrics very much. But I like them. I like the way I like the way those words happen in the song, and they kind of fit perfectly.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I can see why someone might say that, but I also agree that Andrew makes it work.
Hmm.
And it's with the other lyrics, and it's just the overall feeling of the song with the piano and with the other instruments coming together. It's just a pretty song.
Like I said about, earlier about the poetry, the flow of it. I mean, just, and you talked about specifics. I wanted to come back to that. So the specifics about the descriptor words, like the lights go out in your house. I could get so deep, you could still get sleep, and the cold air, like yellow does on blue. I was looking into that a little bit because somebody on Song Meanings also mentioned the use of colors, and I love when he mentions colors in his
Same.
music, and I kind of look for those nowadays, and because it happens a lot. Like, even actually the very next song on the album, "Break Myself," he says more reds than grays, I think, in "Break Myself," and so he's using different colors in the very next song. But I love when he does that with the color. But anyway, yeah, there's such specifics in here, and I mean, just saying "she paints me blue." I love it's very poetic, putting it a certain way. And here we are. We still are not even sure, obviously, what he meant. If he meant she makes him sad, or there's some other meaning behind that. So
You were talking about the yellow in the song. I love that bit because you can kind of view it in a couple different ways. So I've
hmm
relied on you like yellow does on blue. They're both primary colors. So if you're going to create another color out of it, you need both of them together.
hmm
But I also think that they're one of my kind of back of my brain things that I think about is how much he likes Van Gogh, like Starry Night. And those colors are very present in that painting,
yep.
which kind of just blows my mind that he would kind of piece all that together. But I like the way that it is.
I wonder if he uses yellow in other places in his songs throughout his career, like he does blue, because it seems like blue comes up fairly often, or maybe it's just because two songs of his have the word blue in it. I'm thinking
Blue in
that
the title.
maybe that's not even true. Yeah.
He does mention colors a lot and
hmm
other like nature elements like the weather and water and the ocean and kind of
hmm
that stuff that I like. But the ocean and water are also blue. So maybe he's just
Yeah.
very into it.
Maybe that's where it's coming from for me. That I think he mentions blue a lot, but yeah, when you started to say the colors, the yellow does on blue, I actually thought about, to me, yellow represents sunshine or
Mm-hmm.
happy. So it kind of made me think that too. Well, there's that dynamic between the sad and the happy. I don't know, but
Yeah. How feelings can exist at the same time, even if they're opposites. I wouldn't have thought about it like that, but I like it.
yeah, I didn't think of it until you started saying yellow does on blue and how they need each other. And do you have some favorite lyrics, some standout lyrics in this song? Like what are your kind of, what are the ones that stand out to you when you maybe sing along to it in your car or in concert?
So the one that we just discussed is one of my favorite pieces of it. But I also like Destiny Gets Nervous. I think maybe it's just very poetic, like we were talking about. So that one. And then when I'm really rocking out, just the Atlanta started raining on me, and I can
Mm-hmm.
kind of imagine and, feel myself there.
That's my favorite part of the song right there, actually, lyric wise, but also musically. Atlanta started raining on me. That outro, I think it does have to do with the way it flows into the next song. I think that's just a really important piece of the album, and in an album that I find it very difficult to listen to only one song on and not keep playing it. In fact, when I was listening to this song, I always listen to the song we're going to talk about over and over several times. I found it really difficult not to listen to Break Myself afterward. I'm like, no, it just doesn't make sense without going into that song. But I think that's why I love that piece so much, because of that piano melody he's playing. Atlanta started raining on me, and he repeats it, and then it flows into Break Myself. Do you have a favorite part of the song?
I like the beginning piano a lot. Like, as soon as I hear the first couple of notes, I know exactly what it is. And it
Mm-hmm.
just really gets me excited to listen to the rest of the song. But I do like the outro because it's very different. Because a lot of times songs will just end, and this one has a very definitive ending, but it does go so nicely into the next one. So I just the music of it, I would just really enjoy. Did you watch? Oh, I know you did because I've heard you talk about it. The Instagram lives in 2020.
Oh yeah.
One of the ones that he played this song, Cecilia's in the background dancing, and it's just the
Oh yeah.
cutest thing. And now that I have seen that and gone back and watched it a couple of times, maybe that's also kind of connected itself to that song for me, which makes it
Mm-hmm.
feel a little less sad.
Yeah. Well, it's the love story has a happy ending, right? So,
Yeah.
and she's the evidence, the primary evidence of that. So, I forgot that was the one where she is in the back, or she walks in and he's like, was that the one where he's like, you should make like you're a rowboat and going across the screen? I can't remember if that was the one, but anyway, I'll link that in the show notes as well. I think that was one of the very first live streams, possibly. Yeah, that was fun to see her on the live streams, and
So cute.
occasionally Kelly would be on there, but I don't think she ever like walked onto the screen. But you could kind of hear her off the camera. But
Yeah, there's one that he makes a cocktail and he hands it to her to try, and we see her for a second, and I forget what he made, but she says, "It's weird, but that doesn't mean I don't like it." And he kind of like gave her like a nudge nudge. But yeah, we don't see her as much, but I love Cecilia's spirit. She just enjoys the music and she's just vibing with it.
I have a really random thought about what you just said. I wonder if Kelly ever says that about the music Andrew makes. It's weird, but that doesn't mean I don't like it.
I mean,
Just a thought.
maybe.
I mean, I'm sure she gives him honest feedback no matter what it is. So
Well, yeah, you need your partner for that.
yeah, for sure. When you said that, I was like, that kind of sounds like something that some might say about music. It's weird, but doesn't mean I don't like it. So, so I know this is one of your favorite songs.
This is my top, and then I have a lot of other favorites underneath that kind of shuffle.
Do you have any favorites you're enjoying off of the new album, Till to the Wind No More?
Absolutely. I love Smoke and Ribbons. I had heard some of the songs from the new album because they kind of trickled out. But
Mm-hmm.
when the whole thing came out, I decided to take the Hazel Jacks approach, and I listened to the last one first because
Oh, did you?
I just loved that when she described it. So I heard Smoke and Ribbons and I was like, all right, I'm in for a good ride. I'm excited about it. So that's one of my favorites, but I also really like Lying on the Hood of Your Car.
So I think I actually chatted Hazel after that album came out and asked her about that because of that is such like a powerful song.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "Oh yeah, it's a good album because of that song is one of the best songs on the album probably for a lot of people." And yeah, my brain can't do that. I could never go to the end of the album and then go back or something. I don't know.
I had heard Lying on the Hood of Your Car before it came out, and I had heard Stars,
Skywriting probably.
Skywriting, and I knew that I liked them, so I knew I was going to love it. But for the other ones that I hadn't heard, I decided to try something different this time.
Yeah.
And I started at the end, and it paid off for me in a big way because I just really like that song too.
That is one. I'm hopeful I'll hear that in concert this weekend, but we'll see. So
I would think so. I don't want to spoil anything for you, but I've seen a couple TikToks lately of that song live.
Yeah, I think that's one that's like what you're saying. I think it's one that's popping out for a lot of people. Yeah, I'm excited about that one. I'm really enjoying New Friends, which is just a completely different Andrew McMahon song. You know, I don't think it's like anything else that he's ever done, but I really like it.
I do too.
It's just so fun.
There's a tiny piano riff that reminds me a lot of Caves, and I think it's New Friends that I'm thinking of.
Let's listen for that.
Yeah, if it's a different one that I'm thinking of, I'll message you. But I'm pretty sure that that's it. But other than that, I agree with you. It's so super duper different. And that one to me feels more like a storytelling than a poem. And I feel like you get a really good glimpse of what he's trying to get across.
Yeah, it's pretty clear, those lyrics right there. I just have a last comment about She Paints Me Blue. So we've talked about She Paints Me Blue a lot, and we mentioned Dark Blue. But do you remember the song Get on My Wave from 2020?
Yes.
So he sings, I paint myself blue. So I paint myself blue.
So I can blend in with the sky?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So do you think that was really intentionally calling back to She Paints Me Blue? Because I always thought, as soon as I heard that, I was like, oh, he's calling back an old song of his. Then sometimes I'm like, I don't know. Sometimes he just mentions colors. And
I think it could definitely be a callback that is intentional, kind of a wink and a nod to something corporate. Which one is it? Homes of All the Tattoos. She Had Love. And if I were her,
I woke up in a car.
Yeah, I'd paint my body till all my skin was gone. So I think it could also
That's true. Oh, tattoos.
All go together.
Yeah, I paint myself blue. Maybe that is a reference to tattooing. I didn't even think of that, actually.
I mean, it could be a couple different things, but it definitely does feel like a wink and a nod to She Paints Me Blue.
Definitely felt that way. Well, any final thoughts about the song? Anything we missed before we wrap up?
I feel like we covered it. I think it's been really fun to discuss it and dissect it and just enjoy sharing the love of the music with someone else, because I don't get to talk about this very much.
It is so nice to, get on these podcast recordings and talk about this music with other fans that I love so much. And I think it makes it something different when you can share those thoughts and feelings with other people. And that's what I love about the show. And hopefully people who listen feel that way when they listen to it. But I really enjoy this. So I appreciate you being on. Thank you so much for coming on tonight.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for having me.
And I hope your friends listen to it and hear all the wonderful things you say. It sounds like you guys have a great friendship. You said some wonderful things about them. So it makes me think they're really good people.
Oh, they're the best. I love them from the bottom of my heart.
Well, again, thanks. If anybody wants to get a hold of me ever, email somethinginthewilderness@gmail.com or DM me on Instagram. Feel free to comment anytime on social media, of course, as always. And I'm going to end with a quote as a more tongue-in-cheek type of thing, because my wife is probably just about gone to bed by now. It's late, so I'll end on this note. Tonight I watched the lights go out in your house, wondering how I could get so deep and you could still get sleep.